That's a good way.
What are your thoughts on open relationships?
It's definitely not something I encourage, even though I can understand why people do it, but it's not something I encourage because essentially, I always look at relationships through the lens of a child. And when you have children and both parents are in open relationships, what happens is they start to learn to put their desires before the needs of each other and the needs of the relationship. And it's just not good for creating a unit. It's not good for part of being in a healthy relationship is sacrificing what you truly want for the sake of the commitment to this marriage. But when you are in an open relationship, you're not asking them to sacrifice anymore. And then they don't get in the habit of putting somebody else's feelings first. And it's just pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. It's just not a good way to live your life. It's not healthy for you. It's just not healthy, but I can understand
I think there's always going to be one person who will get hurt.
Yeah, because there's always one winner. There's always somebody who's actually upgraded.
The person who cares less is going to win.
Always the person who cares less is always going to be a one step ahead, and then it becomes a battle, and then it becomes a problem, and then what happens is you're trying to beat each other, and you start to be on opposite teams. Like if you went out that night, I'm going to go out this night. If you met somebody hot, I'm going to meet someone hot. It's always a negative thing. I don't know if it's very good for short term, but terrible for long term. In my experience of watching couples that do it.
Can you or should anyone ever forgive a partner who has cheated?
I think when you have children, yes. When you have children, you can do it. The reason being is children benefit from seeing mum and dad go through troubles, going through it, staying together. But forgiveness and staying are not the same thing. Staying with your partner and then punishing them and being horrible to them and controlling them and being abusive is not forgiving. Forgiving is we're going to start fresh. What made you want to cheat? Let's try and fix that. But what I noticed, especially when men forgive women, it's not always good. Because they start to lose respect for themselves. They start to think, I'm such a fucking idiot. How can I forgive her? And they get angry at themselves. And
do they end up wanting revenge?
They want revenge and they get abusive. Either physically or mentally. Where are you going? What time are you going? This, that, and the other. Calling her names, calling her this, that, and the other. Women do it too when they've been cheated on. But women tend to just withdraw their love. They no longer love you. They no longer want to sleep with you. Whereas for men, when they forgive you, they hate themselves for not being strong enough to leave you. So they end up being verbally and physically abusive because they're a less happy person. So I say if there's no kids, don't do it.
Yeah, I generally would probably not forgive.
Have you ever forgiven by it? Like, have you ever been softer and thought, let me try and forgive?
No, I mean, fortunately, I think I've been, I don't know for sure, but I feel like I've been in a position where I haven't really been cheated on.
Yeah.
But in my earlier days, in my early 20s, I think for sure it happened. Now that I look back at everything.
Yeah.
And
but
I think
you've never been in a situation where it's been outright, someone's cheated?
No, but the other person had started speaking to someone.
Okay.
So in a way, I just thought, well, it's over.
Right.
And I think if someone has cheated, it's never going to be the same again.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Like, even though you try to tell yourself as much as possible, oh yeah, we can make it work again. You're always going to think about it, and the trust is gone. And what I've noticed in a relationship, when the trust is gone, it's a mess.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but you start to be mad at yourself for not being strong enough to leave them. And when you're mad at yourself, you're a difficult partner. You're angry, you're aggressive, you're hostile. You don't want to reward them. You're like, oh, why should I cook for them? Why should I give her why should I give her a birthday present? You start to withhold the good things, but really unleash all the bad things. So I think it's always a bad thing. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out well.
What advice would you give to somebody who's in a relationship or dating someone who has experienced severe emotional trauma, usually maybe in their childhood?
Oh, okay.
So how do you deal with that?
The thing is, when you've been traumatized in your childhood, you can't help but look for trauma in adulthood. So you'll look for somebody who will reincarnate that trauma. Somebody, say, for example, parent is abusive, you look for an abusive partner. Parent is absent, you look for an absent partner. You owe yourself the right to feel loved in the correct way. So select wisely. Selection is everything. Try not to, because what happens is when you've been traumatized, somebody who feels familiar, even though it's chaotic and horrible, you'll be drawn to them because it feels familiar. And you label that as chemistry. And somebody who's nice, consistent, and caring, you see as boring. And you're like, oh, I don't want that. You owe yourself to look for peace, not pleasure. Because in the long run, that peace will give you that comfort you always craved as a child. But that chaos will rehash all the traumas and you are left feeling so low. So you owe yourself that experience of love if you didn't get it as a child. Try and think about it like that. That child that in you that's been hurt and traumatized needs love. Go to somebody who gives it, not somebody who reminds that child that they're unworthy. Because that's what the people tend to do. They reincarnate all the horrible things.
I wouldn't say I've had experience of that specifically, but I have been seeing, or I've been in a relationship with someone who had a very narcissistic mother. And that...
It's traumatizing, right?
Would you class that as being...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What happens in that narcissistic child there is either that they become a bit narcissistic or they accept narcissism towards them. So they accept somebody who doesn't value them, makes them earn their love, really abusive, really negative, and they see that as normal. And if they get that narcissist to love them, it's almost like getting their mum to love them. So they're almost up for the challenge, but they're re-abusing themselves. So it doesn't work out, unfortunately.
Unless you're really narcissistic.
Unless you're really
then it's going to be great.
It all works. Then it all works well, go perfectly. But it is unfortunate how you can't pick your childhood, but you're stuck with it for the rest of your life. It's unfortunate. Do you feel like you had it quite easy as a child, or like?
Well, I did up until the age of 11, and my mum died of breast cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was brought up in my teens, very confused, angry, pissed off with the world, and surrounded by a lot of, it was just masculine energy, because it was my brother, my dad, my grandparents were there, but I didn't have that mother figure.
Did your dad remarry?
He's not remarried, but he's with someone now, and she's like really nice.
Did you have a mother figure in that 11 onwards, or no? So did you become hyper independent or really clingy to people?
Hyper independent. I was, I guess I liked being by myself.
Yeah. And so now do you find it like difficult when a woman wants all your time and energy?
Yes, but I don't know if it's specifically linked to that though. I think I'm just generally quite...
Usually is. What happens with people who have that trauma, they become hyper independent, and what happens is when somebody wants a lot of their time and energy, instead of seeing it as a form of love, they see it as a form of control. They always want space. So even if they're married, a part of them wants like a separate bedroom, or even if they...
Okay, that sounds like me.
I can almost tell you. I know what happens is when they start to get attached to somebody, as much as they want emotional intimacy, they want distance. So they get attached, spend some time together, and then be like, not ignore her text the next day. And she's like, we just had a great time. And you're like, I need space now. Like mentally you're thinking, I need distance. So what happens is they kind of intimacy, distance. And that person's like, what the hell is going on with this guy? And then they try and pull you more. And the more they try and pull you, you feel like they're strangling you.
I think definitely in my early 20s, there was the relationships that I was in. I don't think they'd come across someone like me before.
Yeah,
they found me very puzzling.
Yeah. And then sometimes you end up not cheating, but just opening doors to other women, not because you want to cheat, but you just want to create independence from your partner. You just want to create an emotional distance. So you end up just kind of talking to other women just to create that space, just so she doesn't think that she has total control over you, because you're just not used to it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And so other things that they'll do is they point out flaws in their partner, not because there are flaws, but they're trying to emotionally detach. So their partner will, after being with somebody who's hyper independent, their partner's like, does he even love me? Like, I don't even know. And he's like, no, I love you lots, but I'm just guarded.
I think I found it very difficult to express emotions and communicate.
Do your partner sometimes not even know if you love them or not? They're not sure?
No, they know now.
They know
I think probably after the age of 25, I got much better at understanding women and just expressing myself. But beforehand, I was like so cold. Yeah,
here's the tip. If you just soothe her when she's being annoying, she leaves you alone for a while. If you just reply quite quickly, she'll leave you alone for a couple of hours. But when you leave her on red and when you don't reply and you don't, that's when she starts talking to herself and going crazy. Quick tip is call her quickly, then you don't have to hear from her a couple of hours. It's just like, but men think you're trying to control me. It's like, it's not control. It's like giving a baby a dummy.
But speaking of that, why is it that when women are annoyed, you have to ask them 10 times what is wrong. Until they finally say, okay, this is the problem. Because if something has annoyed me or my partner's done something, straight away I'll be like, look, that was annoying. Like, don't do that again. But because I always know if I've done something wrong, straight away I can tell because the behavior changes. So instead of just prolonging this really awkward, annoying energy that is going on, I say, what's wrong? And they're like, nothing. I say, what's wrong? And they said, oh, no, nothing. And I'm like, I know something's wrong.
Do you know what it is? With women, they tend to be really emotionally intelligent. So if we know that what might upset you, so we kind of know, okay, this might upset you. So we assume if you cared about us, you'd know. And so because we think emotional intelligence is natural, we forget that men don't have that. They don't always think from somebody else's perspective all day, every day. They're not mind readers. So we think that if you loved me, you would know. In our mind. So if we have to tell you, you must not love me, but that's the wrong attitude, women. You shouldn't think like that. Effectively communicate what you need to be said, because otherwise you create distance and you create frustration in your partner. But we as women think if you loved me, you'd know. And when we have to tell you, we feel like we're weakening the connection, but really you're strengthening it. And so, yeah, it's a stupid technique. But
yeah, men and women are very different.
Yeah.
And like what we think is not going to upset them, it may potentially upset them.
Massively.
I mean, sometimes it's obvious you've done something wrong.
But it's like when liking pictures, men have no idea how much that stresses a woman out.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later. But yeah, there's so many times where I've been scratching my head and I mean, like, I have been so distracted throughout the day. I have so many things to do, but I cannot stop thinking about what it is that I could have possibly done to annoy it.
And
so
what is it usually? What kind of stuff is it usually?
Maybe just something I've said, or just
not
like
meant to.
Just like in my opinion, it's usually the stupidest things.
Okay.
Because if it had been like something which I've done something wrong. I know what I've done.
Yeah.
But a lot of time it's just like little things that I'm like, you really? Okay, that was...
She loves you though. One thing I would say to men is when a woman's fighting with you, she's actually fighting for you. You should be worried when she stops caring. When she's actually annoyed at the little things, men tend to be like, oh, she's disrespectful, she's rude, she's so annoying. But it's actually because she cares too much. And so stupidly, we fight when we care too much. Annoyingly, yeah.
What have you found in your profession are sort of the common issues and patterns that couples are having? Yeah. In their relationship?
You know, people think it's cheating or it's something big, but the real thing is, I'm sorry, people are thinking it's like cheating or doing something major, but it's actually not. The real thing that predicts divorce, they find all studies that found that 90% of divorces can be predicted by this. It's when your partner is trying to connect and you reject them. What I mean by this is, say for example, your partner comes home from work and is like, oh, I'm so tired. And you turn around and say, why are you tired? What have you done all day? That creates distance. Or if they say, I want to watch this, and your partner's like, you watch shit shows, instead of saying, all right, cool, we'll watch it. It's little things like when they're trying to connect with you, do you respond and be like, all right, cool, I'll watch it with you? Or do you say, your programs are shit, and you create that non-responding to their emotional connections? It doesn't mean men and women, it's anybody. So if you see your partner's sad and you don't even look at them, whereas a partner that says, hey, what's wrong with you? And responds to it, immediately responding to each other's bids for connection is what leads to a happy relationship. And people who don't, it's disconnect. And there's a slow divorce. Then it leads to cheating. Then it leads to looking somewhere else because you're feeling like my partner doesn't see me.
Do you think more couples should go to counselling?
Every single one should do it, especially before they have children. You owe your children a stable home. And before you go down that route, make sure you two can at very least co-parent if worse comes to worse. And I think if you want to ever start a family, you owe your children two dedicated parents to make sure that child receives the best care in the world. Whereas when you don't do this, children are born and they're traumatized by two parents who can't love the child enough to just put their differences aside. So I definitely think I think it should be free. I think everybody should just go to counselling. It should be part of healthcare.
I think there's some negative stigma attached with it.
Why
that
is
if
that?
You're, well, I don't know why, but it's just,
I don't know.
If
maybe
you say that, it's like we've gone to counselling. People would assume that there's problems.
Yeah, but there's problems in every relationship.
Especially the longer that they go on. Usually within the first 6 months. Yeah. You don't, like, everything's sweet. You don't really need to work hard. No. After that 6 months, after 1 year, then you, both of you have to make a bit of an effort.
And especially when kids come along, you have to work on it. So I just think that you would do your children a huge favor if you invest a little bit into therapy before you go into becoming parents.
So this is something I wanted to talk about because the majority of my arguments in my past relationships have been down to social media related activities. Here we
go. What have you done?
So, I mean, I'm at a point now where I've made my mistakes and I've learned from them.
What would be the biggest mistake? Or
I think I look back at it now, it's fairly obvious. If you're in a relationship and you're liking other girls' photos, even though in your head you're like, it's nothing, I think I underestimated how
really
much
damage
that would be for her. Because obviously, if she's scrolling social media and she sees that I've liked a photo of a girl who's, you know, maybe she's like half naked or whatever, like, of course she's not going to like that. And then I'm kind of thinking, oh, it's not that bad. But then if she does the same thing and likes a picture of a topless guy, I'm like, I'll flip out. I'll go crazy. So it's very important to put myself in their shoes. And I've understood that if you are in a relationship in real life, you have to be in a relationship on social media as well.
Absolutely. And it would cost you nothing to not tap and save your relationship a lot. It would cost you nothing. It's not a big ask. But men don't like to feel like they're being controlled. They're like, oh, you're just being controlling, you're being insecure, you're being this, you're being that. But I always say women who post provocative pictures and men who like provocative pictures, are you being insecure? Or are you recognizing that it is an invitation for something that you don't want to invite into your relationship? And it would cost you nothing to just not tap. So that's why I recommend just avoiding it.
But what about following people of the opposite sex?
If they're your friends, there's no problem. But if
you
it's
said
random,
you said I can't be friends with women.
Yeah, okay. If they're random, there's no need. Why?
Yeah.
Especially if it's a profile like yours.
If we're in a relationship and then I follow somebody who is maybe in your industry, like a female role model who you respect.
Yeah. Then I think women don't mind so much when they see who you're following is kind of similar to them. They don't mind as much. But when it's the exact opposite, I know girls who've actually gone out and got surgery because their man was following a bunch of girls that had a particular surgical procedure. So you have no idea the damage it causes women. I know so many women who've gone out and got lip filler because their partner was following girls out or gone, and that's just nothing. Imagine the surgeries, the amount of surgeries women have got because their partner kept following girls that look a certain way, tattoos and this, they've done so much damage. So what you think is small is actually having a huge impact. So why not just avoid it? If it's so small, just stop it. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I always say.
Yeah, I think, I guess if you're young, you end up making these mistakes and hopefully you learn from them. Hopefully if you're watching this, you don't make the same mistakes, which I do. Yeah. There's been some unfortunate circumstances where I literally just cannot believe the timing sometimes. Yeah. So I will be, I'm with my partner scrolling through social media and then a message pops up from a girl saying, "You have a girlfriend? Question mark.
And did you know this girl or no?
Literally, I think I'd messaged her like 6 months ago, like barely, like no conversation. But because it popped up
wrong timing.
Instantly, they're like, who's that? Why is she asking that? Yeah, like all these questions. Yeah. And there's been so many scenarios where there is genuinely nothing going on. Yeah. But because they see it, they just can't forget about it and they will assume the worst. Yeah, so it's crazy. You know, sometimes I'm almost afraid to get my Instagram out in front of my partner when I'm with them, because there might be a girl who I was seeing a year ago. Yeah, who might be like, you know, cause this happens sometimes, if I post a picture and like I'm looking good in that picture on my story, people are going to reply to it and I can't control those messages popping up, particularly if I've already had some sort of a conversation with them in the past. Right. So I feel like that's kind of out of my control. I don't recommend ever like being secretive or like, I also don't think that you should go through each other's phone or not. But usually women feel more insecure, and men, when they don't feel as loved. When you take effort to make quality time, give them attention, they can see stuff like that and feel okay. But when they felt like they haven't heard from you the whole day, you haven't had one-to-one time in a while, you've been on your phone the whole day, that message can ignite something. So I always think the cure to insecurity is connection. Spend quality time, no phones, just me and you, she'll be calm. They're like babies. Just give them a bit of attention and love. This is something as well which has definitely been a bit of an issue. Because of my job and what I do, I need to be messaging my team, or I need to be on, I mean, I would admit the majority of the time on social media, I don't need to be on social media, but I do need to go there and post. And then if people asking questions, I need to reply. So I think definitely I need to make more of an effort when I'm with my partner to undivided attention, put the phone away. And because the thing is, even if you're at dinner, if you get your phone out and you start going on it, then it automatically gives the impression that you're boring.
Yeah.
This is more interesting.
And the thing is, if you just give undivided attention in the first 25 minutes, you can do what you want for the next hour. You just got to see it as an investment. It will pay off. You just give her undivided attention and then you can relax. But when she hasn't got it, she becomes difficult. She becomes itching, pulling for your attention, and then you withdraw, and it's just a cycle. So just give it to her.
So I've got some questions for you now.
Yeah.
So what does your ideal man look like?
What would my ideal man look like? That's an interesting question.
Not necessarily physically, but physically. Just
discipline. I really, really, really admire a disciplined man. And even with me, even with my behavior, discipline. So he's got a set of principles and boundaries when it comes to his mind, body, and soul, what he wants to do in terms of work, what he wants to do in terms of a gym, what he wants to do in terms of the relationship. Now, he doesn't bend those rules regardless of who I am and what I like. Not that, like, if you are acting crazy, if you're going to be silly, that's not going to work here. But when you bend and do that, I actually lose respect in that process. Stick to your guns, stick to your morals, stick to your work hard, be inspiring. I'm inspired by that. I'm inspired by a man that says, we're going this, we're doing that. And I do like a man who naturally, instinctively likes to look after his woman, not necessarily financially, emotionally as well, enjoys looking after and being with a woman. I don't enjoy that man that is accessible and available to everybody and anybody. He's here, there, and everybody. Every girl wants to be with him, and every girl has been with him. It loses his allure. I like a kind of a guy who's selective with his time, money, and energy. And I do think that's one of the traits I do look for in a man.
Are you currently in a relationship?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
yeah, I'm in a relationship at the moment. But like I said, I'm crazy.
You're crazy. What are some attributes which you have that you wish you didn't have?
Jealousy. Very
jealous.
Very. I hate it. I hate it. And not just jealous like with women. I'm jealous of time. Where are you going? What are you doing? Honestly, it's so draining. It's like I'm jealous with time. Why are you happy? Like, what have you been doing today? What are you smiling about?
Really?
Like, yes. I'm like, I didn't cause that smile. Where did it come from, you little shit? And I'm like, literally, it's that jealousy.
And how does he deal with that?
It takes a lot of patience. But there's zero tolerance. I know I won't get what I want by being jealous. I won't get anything out of him. I actually get more out of him if I'm just calm and nice and stuff. So I try and be more calm and nice in the end. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not an easy trait. And random insecurities. My problem is I know men too well. In my head, I think I know men too well. So what could be something quite innocent, my brain will say, no, that means da, da, da. And I connect the dots when they don't need to be connected. It's very difficult.
I guess that's an issue with your profession.
Yeah, you see the worst.
Have you been wrong about quite a lot of things? Every time.
Every single time. I'm always wrong. Because my brain will be like, okay, it's been 90 minutes. I haven't heard from you. What the fuck have you been doing? And then I realize it's football matches on. I'm like, oh shit, sorry.
He sounds like he's a very patient man.
Oh God, he deserves a medal. I'll have to say he deserves a medal.
Where did you meet? In Dubai?
In Dubai. In Dubai, yeah.
Not a club, I assume.
No, not a club. Through work, through business, investments into something. And then that was the method.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's not a bad way to meet, I think.
A lot of your friendship groups or the women that you're friends with, are they also in relationships?
Yeah, they are in relationships, but Dubai is a mixed bag because in England, all of my friends are married, kids, everything. In Dubai, it's they could be married, but they act very single. Yeah, so it's a different kind of vibe.
What advice would you give to men in their 20s?
Do not use your 20s as an extended adolescence. Do not use your 20s to just prolong being 19. Don't be all the day, every day in the clubs. Don't be every day holidays. Don't be every day spending money you don't have. Don't be every day chasing women you don't need. Use that as training ground for 30. What I find is that you'll meet men who get to 28 and have no savings, have no no idea where they're going with their career, have just spent their 20s partying because they're like, I'm young. But the reality is it's training grounds. And if you get to 28 and you're just an old teenager, it's not attractive and you won't feel good. So fulfill your potential in your 20s while you've got the energy. You've got so much energy to work so many hours or work hard in the gym, and your energy goes down as you get older. So use it to fulfill your potential. If you get to 30 and you haven't fulfilled your potential, you will start to disrespect yourself and you'll start that depression cycle. Whereas when you fulfill your potential, by the time you get to 30, you are ahead, your mental health is going to be in a good place.
So you would argue it would make sense, and which I believe in as well, you should be spending that time trying to become the man that women want to be with, to get yourself to that top 10.
Try and be that man that women is secondary. Like you, I don't even recommend being in a relationship in your 20s, because what it does when men are in a relationship in their 20s, it kind of ticks that box off, and then less like, oh, I've got to go to the club every weekend to meet a girl, got to sleep with girls, got to go on holidays. They kind of tick that box off and focus on a bigger issue. But I always just think, fulfill your potential, whether that's your body, whether that's your work, whether that's with women, fulfill your potential, don't settle, and then you'll be proud of yourself.
So you're saying don't be in a relationship?
Or do be in a relationship. Yeah, I recommend it. Were you in a relationship in your 20s?
Yeah, I had, there was one for 2 years when I was 21, 22. Then I was kind of single for a bit. Then I was in a long-term relationship, 26 to 27. That was the first time I fell in love.
Oh, how'd that go?
Well, great at the time, but then it was like absolutely heartbreaking when
it's horrible, isn't it?
break up. But I think I'm happy to have had the opportunity to experience it, because I imagine quite a lot of people go through life not knowing what love is or what it feels like.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to have experienced it, because it feels like you're on some kind of a drug.
Yeah.
It's really overpowering.
It's really euphoric.
But
it's also very distracting.
Yeah.
Was it toxic or was it healthy?
I wouldn't say it was toxic. It was long. It was a long distance relationship. So I think if anything, that kind of prolonged it, because we had that distance. We were just like so eager to see each other again, which probably made that feeling last longer.
Ah, okay. So
but it was
that novelty.
Yeah, but I would say it was so distracting, because when I was with her, when I was experiencing it, I did not care about anything else.
Aww.
Didn't care about work. Didn't care about I pied off all of my friends.
Yeah.
Didn't care about like making money. All I wanted to do was just spend all of my time with that person.
And then, but did you manage to still, by the time you got to 30, were you proud of the person you were in your 20s?
I would say so, yeah. But I mean,
a lot, right?
I think the problem, when I was in my 20s, I didn't have all these people to look up to and listen to. Like, we're at a point in time now where there's so many people doing podcasts. There's so much amazing information being put out there by very experienced guys and girls that you, if you just put the time and effort just to listen to them, you're already in a position where
mentors,
you just don't have to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, when I was in my 20s, we're talking like 10 years ago or more, there was very few people offering that advice. So I had to kind of figure a lot out by myself.
And were you already on 1 million followers when you turned 30? Were you already like quite a subscriber?
No, I think it happened when I turned 30, when I was 29. 29,
okay. Okay, amazing. Be proud of that.
Yeah, but then you can't get too overly obsessed with the followers and numbers.
Well, it translates into connections and brands and all that stuff. So it's not the number that's impressive, it's what comes with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were happy with that?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I think what made me the most happy was getting to a point where I was earning a certain amount of money per month. And then you're just like, whoa, like, okay, this is cool.
Feels good, right?
Yeah.
Is it fun being rich?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely prefer it to being poor.
It must be fun,
But what is interesting is once you reach a certain threshold of income, anything above that, it's not going to provide you with that much more happiness.
Yeah, you're not going to do anything more.
Like you end up doing is what you want to get a fancier car, you want to get a fancier apartment, you want to just buy pointless things.
But if you're a bad decision maker, all you do with more money is make more bad decisions. But if you're a good one, it just it doesn't really do anything after a certain amount. What you can do with it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I think when I did go through a phase where I put in the effort and the hard work, and my life wasn't really that exciting. Didn't do that much. Then when I turned 28, 29, I started to really enjoy it.
Okay.
So I kind of took my foot off the pedal, enjoyed life for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that ticked off boxes. I did things which I wanted to do. A lot of things which I thought were going to be amazing, they were amazing for a very small period of time. Then they got boring and I didn't want to do it anymore.
Okay.
So then I just came back to almost that same person who I was when I was grinding in the beginning.
You pretty much experienced a lot of life in your 20s.
Yeah.
And so what's the next step? What would you like to do next?
I think at this point, next few years, I want to just fulfill my potential in terms of what I can do with growing businesses, making money, social media, providing value.
Yeah.
And then obviously, eventually, I would like to start a family.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Oh.
But, what am I, 32 now?
Yeah.
Is there a right age to start?
Any age is a good age. Any age is a good age. Every age is a good age for children. The thing is, as long as you give them the love they need.
But I know my life will change quite drastically.
Maybe that's not as much as it is, but yeah.
I'm enjoying being extremely selfish and enjoying my freedom right now.
You know what it is? Every man I know that has kids, they obviously enjoy being selfish and having their freedom, but they feel like the life before kids was nothing in comparison.
Really?
Yeah, they just say like, oh, it's a different level of joy. I know footballers who've scored in the World Cup, and they'll say to you, yeah, but you know when you have a baby, and or when you walk in and the baby runs to you, they're like, that's a different feeling. And I'm like, but you've scored in the World Cup, and they're like, I know, but it's a different feeling. So it is, it's something you would love.
It's a huge life experience, which I don't want to miss out on, for sure. But I think it's important to get yourself into a position where you can provide for them and also be there for them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would say I'm probably at that point now.
Sure.
But I just need to make sure that, you know, one of the biggest decisions you make in your 30s or later life is who you're going to have kids with. That is such a huge...
Especially for a man. For women, we can almost hide behind the fact that we know we'll have the baby. If worse comes to worse, you know, the laws favor us. But for a man, it's soul destroying. I've seen people who've gone straight into depression because they can't access their own child. But a stepdad who's probably on who might be anything, can sleep in the same bed as their child, and it's just soul destroying. So the choice you make with who you lie down with is incredibly important. And
I feel like it's probably going to be more difficult for me because I have more choice.
Yeah.
So even I might be with someone who I think maybe this is the right person, but then I might think, well, maybe there's someone better.
And like you were saying, the girls that are the ones that you like might be a bit intimidated by your status online. So it is a little bit harder, but you'll definitely find it. Easy.
Have you got kids?
No, I wish. I'm praying. One day. Yeah, one day, inshallah. That's the goal. That's the goal. when I'm less crazy, that's the goal. That's the dream. Yeah.
What's next for you?
Kids. I think kids are the next thing. Work-wise, I do love it. But
we were speaking about maybe the lack of female role models.
Yeah.
You are the female role model that women need.
Do you think so? Why'd you say that?
Because you switched on and you have a lot of value to offer. And I think there's not many, particularly on YouTube, you just don't see many women like you. So I would 100% recommend starting your own channel.
You think so?
Yeah, just doing like, you know what you're doing on Instagram, but just extending clips,
versions of
maybe even conversations like these.
Yeah, because the thing is, I've always, my whole life, just wanted to be a mum. But as I've gotten older, I'm trying to think that maybe my purpose is a little bit to spread this message a bit, give a voice to that kind of unheard voice, and then start a family. Because maybe on a global scale, people need to hear something slightly different, because the voice is very divisive. It's either feminist or you've got the red pill. There is no like, how do we create a home in between? And that's why I really want to debunk both sides of that, because it's not healthy for children, and children don't have a voice. And so we as adults have to teach adults how to be good parents. And we can't do that if we're saying, oh, she's a hoe and he's this and men are trash and women, it doesn't lead to healthy homes. So.
And there's a lot of red pill stuff out there. And even I was getting worried. I was like, I don't want this podcast to start going down that route.
What were some of the most scandalous things that I can try and debunk?
Oh, you have to read his book.
Absolutely not.
You have to read the book.
I would rather eat carpet. I am not going to read his book. That would be an insult to my brain cells.
I think it was just the way he was going on about how women are technically adding less value in society, so they deserve less out of it. That's very generalized.
How they define value is like, we build the infrastructure, we build the roads, we build this and that and the other. And it's just like, But that's not society. Society is also who teaches children how to eat, who teaches children what time to go to bed, who teaches children what, like, they don't look at life through the lens of a child. And that's not the person who you should listen to advice from. Listen to the person who understands what children need from a mother and what children need from a father. I've heard some red pill talk say, children don't need a father to be present. They just need a father to come once in a while, give them an inspiration and then go. But that's not true. Women don't need, especially girls, they need a consistent father figure. They need a father that they can call when their car tire is flat. They don't want a dad that just comes every once a month just to inspire them. They need someone that makes them feel safe and nurtured. Otherwise, she will find a man that does it. She will find a man that does it, and it leads to promiscuous women. So don't teach men to be emotionally distant. Teach them to love women, not to just give them less. That doesn't create healthy daughters.
Well, that's your first YouTube video idea. Reviewing that book.
Absolutely not. Because what if somebody reads it?
No, but like that would be a great video. Because
I need to do a conversation with Myron at some point. Myron impression fit.
You need an opposing point of view. You need to be that person who debunks the
and was there anything else that I should debunk on that?
Yeah, there was a lot. That's why you need to read it and review it.
I can't read that book.
You can.
My brain, I can't dishonor my brain by reading that book. But I'll try and listen to bits and bobs of it. I will try and listen to bits and bobs. But what I would say is when you're consuming content as a man, if you leave the content feeling more angry and negative about relationships rather than inspired on how to make it better, stop watching it. Stop watching it. Just stop. Men and women. If you are a woman watching a podcast and you're thinking men are trash at the end of listening to it, stop listening to it. Listen to something that is thinking, this is how I'm going to build a home. This is the type of mother I want to be. Children are really inspiring. I know they're tiring and horrible and annoying, but I really do want to add that value to them.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the time when there has been podcasts and female guests on podcasts, they are literally the worst representative of the female population.
Absolutely.
I'm like, really, like these are the women that are going to be the voice.
Yeah. Does it scare you about the next generation of children?
Oh, yeah. I think well, first of all, social media is going to turn their brain to mush. They have no attention span. But I don't like the idea of everyone being so soft. Particularly men just being really soft.
Soft and easily offended and so sexualized.
Yeah, because I grew up at school and we all used to make fun of each other so much. And I think that's what kept me grounded.
Yeah, I grew up in an environment when I used to teach in London and stuff. They would even make racist jokes, but they was coming from love. Like I could actually see that they're actually making fun of each other in a soft way. But now it's just everything is so hyper sensitive that your children are losing their ability to not take themselves seriously. You have to go through life not taking yourselves too seriously. That's how you build mental health. But if you take everything so seriously and become so personalized, it's a recipe for disaster for your mental health. So it is damaging, unfortunately, but there's no stopping it.
So where can everybody find you on social media? At
Sadia Psychology, both on Instagram and TikTok. And then you can find like lots of advice and podcasts and all that stuff there.
And if any of you guys are in a relationship and you need some assistance or you're having some issues.
Anything, I am the person to ask. I am the person. So please, you can contact me for one-to-ones as well at any point. Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I feel very, very honored to be the first woman on this. So thank you so much.
You did a good job.
Thank you. We'll speak soon for sure.